Welcome, Pat family. This is Bye Bye Money, and this is part one of a series of price action trading for beginners. The first part of price action trading is you need to learn how to count legs. How to count legs. Counting legs is the most basic part of price action trading. You have to remember when counting legs, every single tick matters. According to Al Brooks, who is the father of price action trading, he literally wrote the book on it, or the books on it. He says that every bar, every tick tells us something. So when you see bars jumbled up like this, many of us will say, oh, that's just noise. But for Al Brooks, he will say, this is information, because every tick matters. And so if counting legs is so important for price action trading, how do you count legs? Counting legs is actually pretty simple. Though it might be difficult to do real time, the concept is very easy. We'll start here. This right here is a down leg. It is a down leg or a downtrend until a candle breaks a prior candle's high. This candle right here, as you can see, broke the prior candle's high. Even if it breaks the prior candle's high by one tick, which is 25 cents in the ES futures or the minis or the micros, it still counts as an up leg. So now we are in an uptrend or an up leg until a candle breaks a prior candle's low, which we see here. This candle breaks the prior candle's low, by at least one tick, and now we have a downtrend. And this is a downtrend until a candle breaks the prior candle's high, which we see here. This candle breaks the prior candle's high. Even by one tick. And even if the downtrend or the down leg is only one candle, it does not matter. Once the candle breaks the prior candle's high, we now have a reversing trend, an uptrend here. And this is how you count legs. And this is how you recognize if a leg has began or ended. Now to count legs. We've already seen that this is a down leg. This leg will be the first leg down, and I will signify it with a 0. This is the first down leg. This leg here is the first up leg. Which I'll signify with a 0. Now, for the down legs will continue counting if the pivot high is lower than the previous pivot high. So this leg, the next down leg here, so the next down leg we see here will be a 1. It is a 1 because this pivot high, the 1's pivot high, is lower than the 0's pivot high, even by 1 tick. And the counting will continue even if it's equal. So it could be equal or less than. So the counting continues. So we have a 0 here and a 1 here. Now, the up legs, they also continue if the pivot low is higher than the previous pivot low. So this up leg right here, this up leg will be leg 1. Since this pivot low is higher than this pivot low. This pivot low is higher than this pivot low, so the leg counting continues. Now, we're in a place where the leg counting will reset on the down legs. As you can see, the next down leg begins when the candle breaks the prior candle's low. And so our next down leg continues right here. But the count of this leg will actually not be 2, but it will be 0. If you remember the rule, the legs continue counting if the pivot high is lower than the previous pivot high on the down legs. Here, the pivot high is higher than the previous pivot high. And so we've reset the counting and we're back to 0. On this next up leg, we will see right here, as this candle breaks the previous candle's high, this count will also reset back to 0 because this pivot high is lower than this pivot high. For the up legs, the count resets when the pivot low is lower than the previous pivot low. And that should cover all the rules for counting, and you continue those rules for every leg. That's it for counting. Hope that's helpful.